This video is going to be on pulling out a lot of emotion and really painting the heaven island for your prospect on sales calls. So the video before this was the 5 steps of really getting to the pain, okay? And to recap that, we'll put the video right here, but to recap that, first we have to isolate the pain, then we have to understand the pain, then we have to see what they're currently trying to do to fix the pain, then we have to chunk it down, so we have to get an example or assign numbers to it, and then finally we stretch the pain. That's the 5-step process. This one's going to be on what we do after that, which is getting to the goals, because in the information gathering phase of the call, which is the part where you're asking the questions, essentially there's 2 sort of parts of that, right? There's the part where we cover current situation, which think of as hell island, and the part where we cover desired situation, which is heaven island, okay? And we can do that through 2 primary syntaxes. One's called goals first syntax, the other is called problems first syntax. The only difference between the 2 is, do you start with a problem or do you start with a goal? Okay, which one do you use? Well, I've talked about before, there's 2 types of pain, right? There's a problem and an unfulfilled desire. A problem is like back pain. An unfulfilled desire is, I'm at 10% body fat, I want to get to 7% body fat, right? So one is more going from good to great, that's an unfulfilled desire. A problem is going from less than okay to good, right? From subpar to par. Again, in your information gathering phase, you're going to cover 2 parts in either goals first or problems first syntax. One's going to be on current situation, one's going to be on desired. We already covered not all of current, but a good part of it in that 5-step process. This one's covering desire. Hopefully this all makes sense. So this one's covering desire. So here's what we want to get in the desire section of the call. We want to get, number 1, what's their ultimate goal? So a broad scope question of like, essentially, what do they want? What does their heaven island look like? Then what we want to do is assign some sort of number to it, right? That way we have a data point that really speaks to, it gives clarity and it gives concreteness to what this desired situation is. Then what we want to do is we want to make sure we know why that is important. We want to make sure we have a non-monetary goal attached to that, right? So it might not be monetary, but essentially you want to attach, like, there's monetary gain, there is impact on relationships, there's impact on health and well-being, there's impact spiritually. Like, those are kind of the 4 key areas, right? Well, if we're selling something that helps people make money, we want to make sure that we can tie the benefit of achieving that goal to helping another area of their life, being that relationships, being that their health, being that their fulfillment, being that their spirituality, something like that. Hopefully that makes sense. You'll see what I mean in a second. And then the final thing we want to do is make sure we cover the long-term vision. So to recap, assign a monetary number, we get the long-term vision, and we attach it to one other area of their life. Okay? Those are the 3 key things we want to get when we're painting a heaven island, right? Hopefully this makes sense. Yo guys, hope you're enjoying the video. If you want to learn more about how you can use the skills that I'm talking about in this video, so the skills of persuasion, the skills of sales to get a remote career to where you could make $10, $20, $30,000 a month, if not more, working from anywhere in the world, simply just with your laptop and an iPhone, there is a book a call link below. It should say book with the Remote Closing Academy. Book a call link below. You can go ahead and check that out, speak with somebody on my team and see if we can help you. Now back to the video. So what we'll do is I always like to start with, so ultimately, what's the goal? And the reason I like to start with that as my very first question is because it is very open-ended and they could say literally anything here, okay? They could say quite literally anything. And I'll give you an example of the reason why I like to ask this question. A lot of you guys used to know my first sales job was selling real estate agents. I asked, ultimately, what's the goal? And whereas a lot of real estate agents would talk about the real estate business, this individual, she was very impact-driven. She talked about building a nonprofit to help kids who I think didn't have shelter in Africa. I would have never gotten that information if I didn't ask, what is the ultimate goal? Or ultimately, what's the goal? So I like to ask that and just kind of get a nice, like, open-ended flush out of just what they say. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go for the monetary sort of goal, or like the numerical goal. I'm gonna assign a number to it. So obviously if it's an income-based thing, I'm gonna say, gotcha, well, how much money do you wanna make exactly in the next 3 months, the next 12 months, whatever the time frame is that's appropriate. If it's a dating goal, I might say, how many dates do you wanna be on a week? If it is a weight loss goal, obviously it's gonna be what's your target weight, right? Now, what if you can't assign a monetary number to it? What you wanna do is still make it concrete. That's the main thing we wanna do, is make it concrete. So we could say, give me an example of what life looks like when you blank. Like, walk me through what that would look like day to day in a perfect example. You see what I mean? So you really need to make it concrete. right? So again, ultimate goal, we assign a monetary number. Once we get the example, or once we get the numerical number, then what we want to do is we want to say, gotcha. Okay, so why is that important? Now, the key way of doing this is instead of probing, what you want to do is you want to essentially get them to qualify their answer to you. If you probe, you might say, wow, John, $20,000 a month. What's that going to do for you? You know, it's okay, but here's a better way to do it. Let's say you ask John, gotcha, so what's the income you want to make in the next 3 months? I'd love to be at 20K a month. Wow, okay, cool. Seems like you've thought of that before. If I can ask, why that number? So you can see how in that latter example, pointing out that it seems like he had thought of that before, and that was a predetermined number, and I'm asking why. Does that make sense? I'm qualifying behavior opposed to probing. There's a slight nuance there. The reason why that is so important is if you read Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, the highest driver of human behavior is the consistency bias. It's the bias and the drive for us humans to appear consistent, right? And have reasons that are logical and that make sense, that justify what we're doing and why we're doing it. So when I do that, I get a much better response in terms of compliance than I would do if I probe, right? When I probe, it's more for me. When I get them to qualify their answer to me, it's more for them, right? And it's not about the questions you ask always, it's more about the answers that you get. So that is very, very key. Now, once I get that, again, recap, ultimate goal, then we assign a number to it, then we qualify that. Then what I'll say is, gotcha. And overall, what's the long-term vision for X? Overall, what's the long-term vision for your real estate business? Overall, what's your long-term vision for your dating life, right? Now, if we already got the answer to that question in the ultimate goal section, then we don't really need to ask it again. Like if we asked ultimate goal and we got this big long-term vision, you don't need to sit back and ask again long-term vision. Does that make sense? But a lot of times you might ask ultimate goal and they might say 20K a month. See what I mean? So now we want to get kind of like what's longer term beyond that. So we're painting Heaven Island here. And you might want to do some probing and some clarifying when they say these things, okay? Just be a normal human. But again, we start with ultimate goal, then we assign a number to it, we get them to qualify that number to us, then we ask long-term vision, and now finally the last thing we want to do before we move on and we're done painting Heaven Island is we want to attach that to an unrelated area of their life and how it's going to benefit an unrelated area of their life. So for business, here's what I like to say. Let's say it's and you can adjust this for whatever you're selling, but here's what I like to say if it's a monetary thing. I might say, instead of saying, well, John, how would that affect another area of your life, which is what's taught in sales books? And look, what that question is going for is the information that you need, but it's not the best way to answer that question. And the reason for that is, again, because you're probing, right? And they know what you're doing. Like think about it, if you're a sophisticated person and you're making a ton of money and your time is really valuable, and somebody's like, well, John, like, you know, getting to 20K a month, how's that gonna affect another area of your life? You're kind of like, dude, come on, I'm good, right? So here's another way to ask that question in a way that's much more socially aware and is tremendously more powerful, is gonna get you way better compliance. And it's by utilizing a framework called permission, reason, why question, okay? So I'm gonna give you the example, then I'm gonna break it down. I ask permission, I say, John, can I ask you a personal question? And the reason why I'm asking this is because what's not only important to me is helping you build a real estate business that's building you wealth, but also one that's empowering you to live whatever lifestyle that you want to live. So when you think about that, what comes up for you? Like, what are the non-monetary goals? What are the personal goals that you want your business to allow you to achieve? So you see how that is so much tremendously better than saying, well, John, what's that going to do for you personally? Right? You see how that's so much better. So let me break down what I said there. Can I ask you a personal question? Number one, that's getting permission. Permission increases compliance. Compliance means they give you better answers, okay? Can I ask you a personal question? Increases compliance. Also, when I say personal question, not can I ask you a question, I say personal question, that's a presupposition that I'm gonna get a personal response, which also increases compliance. So right there we have two persuasion triggers, permission and a presupposition. After that, I give the reason why, and I frame that reason why in their own personal best benefit. Right? So it's a preeminent reason why, which is two more persuasion triggers, right? Preeminence, which is framing things in their own best interests. So doing what I just asked is in their own benefit. That's persuasion trigger really number 3 at this point. Number 4 is I give a reason why, right? Again, going back to Cialdini, he's found that when people, like you probably read the study about the copier, if you simply just give a reason because, like your requests are going to be much more met with compliance, simply just by giving a reason. And the reason could be anything. But it's obviously better if it's a preeminent reason why. So I'll say, and the reason why I'm asking is, and then I say what's not important to me is not just building you wealth, but also one that's empowering you to live the lifestyle you want to live. So when you think about that, what comes up for you? So again, I give reason why, and I frame in their own best benefit. And then after those 4 things, those 4 persuasion triggers, then I ask the question. So you see how that's going to get a tremendously better response. Okay? You're going to get really great stuff there. And so that's pretty much it for this video, guys. If you want to go back to the problems one, that's here. Or if you want to go to the full sales process, it's going to be over here. Enjoy.